Yes, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Terry Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And Harlem Network News is a media platform really dedicated to assuring that Harlem and the Harlems of the world are informed, engaged, and called to action. And that is extremely critical at such a time as this. And we're really having the opportunity to put our mission into live action because we are just coming off of the Democratic primary, which was a shocker to us all. So we really want to speak about that topic, and can't move forward today without first paying homage to our ancestors on this 250th year of America that we built. So I'm gonna move forward on that note. We all know what time it is, but I am here today with one of our district leaders in the person of Dr. William Allen, and he is one of our political analysts. And we're just going to address what happened in the Democratic primary. We know there's a lot of buzz out here, which is talking about Democratic Socialists versus Democrats. So, William, just say hey to Harlem and Harlem of the world, and the world for that matter. And just what is a Democratic Socialist, if you will? Thank you.
Oh, I don't know if I'm be a good person to answer that question. I will encourage your listeners to do their own research and Google this stuff and look it up.
Okay.
But one, they're not a political party, but they are an organization. And for some reason, they have appended themselves onto the Democratic Party. Um, I have some really strong views about this as a civic leader. Um, they're able to focus on some narrow issues that resonate with our community. Um, they come off so often with maybe three bullet points, and in the last mayoral election, you heard about free buses, you heard about freezing rent, you heard about creating an affordable New York, and those are little short sound bites that people can easily understand because they can see it, how it can impact them. And so um, I've never been to a Democratic Socialists of America meeting. I can't even name who the officers are, to be quite frankly with you. But I've seen the impact that's had on our elections here in New York City, not only for the mayoralty, but recently for congressional seats, seats in the state legislature, seats in the city council. So apparently they must be doing something right when it comes to engagement. Um,
Okay.
I can't answer the question about how they're educating folks. I can't answer the question about what's the level of accountability, but when it comes to outreach and engagement, they're doing an incredible job.
Okay, it's happening. Okay. Well, since we can do all this stuff through technology, just so that folks have some clarity, there's a whole flip, Democratic Socialist, Socialist Democrat, and there's, minute difference, but it says Socialist Democrat, commonly referred to as a Democratic Socialist, is a political identity rooted in the belief that both the economy and society should be run democratically to meet public needs rather than to maximize corporate profit, rather than replacing government through revolution. They seek to build a working class power and enact reform. So that's kind of a broad stroke for what it is. But
Yeah.
obviously, and you go ahead and weigh in. Yeah.
That sounds nice. You're building a working uh, society, but I have yet to hear any proposed policy about creating work.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, I don't hear the workforce development piece. You know, for example, um, I don't want a free bus. I want to pay my own way. I want to
Mhm.
see the creation of jobs. I want to, I want to make sure that we seriously talk about what is our New York economy and how do we create working opportunities for New Yorkers, for jobs. What about our training programs? Our trades. What about promoting the trades high school, returning those back, whether electrical, carpentry, or plumbing, that immediately help people coming out of working class family or poor family, immediately help them go into the middle class. And
Mhm.
so I don't want to see things that to me represent a welfare state, but certainly that really lifts people up out of poverty and out of struggling every day. That we create solid jobs and opportunities, and it's not just the corporations that stunt growth in America. Often sometimes it's other institutions that also stifle our growth. And it could be
Right. And
democratic institutions. And when I say democratic institutions, I
okay.
don't mean a Democratic Party institution. I mean institutions that's created that sometimes are roadblocks to success.
Okay. And
And
so
so,
can you elaborate on that?
well,
Institution
I mean, for
like,
example, I look at public housing in New York, right?
okay.
And in public housing in New York, you would think with affordable rents or the resources that it would be a group of people, it would allow a group of people to be civically engaged in their community.
Mhm.
But it's one of the groups in New York that has the lowest voting participation of any group in New York City.
Wow.
And they're getting all this government help. So something's like not right. Um,
I
folk,
I,
if folk,
I want to just I want to stop there because the whole NYCHA or public housing situation obviously is a big elephant and giraffe here in New York City.
yes,
And I know for a fact that a lot of people that are in public housing pay high rents because if they've been in there and they make a certain amount of money, they're paying rent based on what they make. And then because now the mean, apartment or something could be $5,000, they're like trapped and can't move and they're living in
yeah, that's
substandard conditions. So
but
we
that.
gotta like
Well,
clarify,
we gotta find who those people are,
right?
and
But we gotta
we
clarify,
gotta tell that story because right
yeah.
now in the public and the
Mhm,
media, I
mhm.
have yet to see that kind of interview.
Right, but
And so we
that's
gotta
a
yeah.
reality. That's a
And
reality. So
I know a good friend of mine's. Um, there's a when we get offline, I'll give you her information. We'll talk
okay,
about her,
great.
but you might want to interview her
Hmm.
and find others that, like you said, that fit into that category where they are paying higher rent in public housing
Hmm.
and not really getting
Any services,
any
yeah.
services.
So
And
that's
so I don't want to lose my point.
no, 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 no.
My
I'm
point
sorry.
is
I just
really
wanted
not
to.
so much just the high rent. People, my concern is the civic engagement part.
No, the civic engagement part
My
is
civic,
critical.
because I go to many public housing tenant meetings and the gathering of public housing tenant leaders. And I asked them, I said, well, the last election, less than 5% of your eligible voters actually voted. What can we do differently to
Hmm.
empower those residents so they can be their own strong voice? Could you just imagine if they really increase their civic engagement? Could you
Wow.
imagine if they actually voted? How much power and how much they can change the city? They
Yes.
can change, and
Yeah. Well, I
they
think
can stabilize our community. I was talking to Senator Cordell Clear
what else?
the other day, and she mentioned the fact that her state senatorial district has the largest number of public housing unit, probably of any state senatorial seat district in the state, probably. And I said, well, wow. I said, well, just imagine if they voted, how much powerful you would be as a state senator, because
Hmm.
now no elected official have power unless their community is exercising their power. You can
Yeah.
go up to Albany all you want, but if you're going up there with 5 cents or 5 votes, they're gonna look. These other politicians, they look at your turnout, and they was like, okay, you got 5 votes, I got 5,000. I'll see
Hmm.
you later.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
just
Well, I
imagine if
think, once again, and this is Harlem Network News for those of you who are just tuning in. I'm Terry Wisdom, and I'm here with our district leader right here from Central Harlem, and that is in the person of Dr. William Allen. I like saying that, but no, that's a very, very real factor. And moving on to the primary that we're just coming off of, with Democratic Socialists, like winning 3 incumbent seats, one of the things that we definitely have to look at,
winning congressional
yeah,
incumbencies,
yeah, congressional, and I think there's
and
an
they won
assembly.
9 state legislative seats out
Yeah,
of 10.
yes. So when we look at that, we and we know there was a poor voter turnout. You know what I'm
It
saying?
was super poor,
It was a
and
super poor voting turnout. So these are things, and unfortunately, I think that New York City probably has one of the lowest voting turnouts in the country, which is really shameful. Given the big debate about voting rights. What are your thoughts on that?
well, you're absolutely right. Not only the big day of voting rights, but if we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of a democracy, and then people are not really participating in democracy, what are we celebrating?
Hmm.
If every year less and less people are participating and managing this democracy by not voting, not attending to their community, then what is the 250th year celebration? A democracy cannot survive if it has no participation. It's not about pointing fingers to say this one is not doing something, that one is not doing something. We all got to be. The 3 pillars for me is political education, political engagement, political accountability. And that's for me, that's not just for politicians or those who are elected, that's for all of us.
Hmm.
Often sometime during election time, Terry, I would run into someone, they'll say, hey, you politicians. I said, first of all, I'm not a politician. I happen to be someone who's active. I'm an activist in the party to make
Hmm.
sure my community is covered. And they'll say, well, you elected people, we only see you around election time. I said, that's interesting because I don't see you at all. I
Okay,
said, you don't come to the community board meeting. I said,
mhm,
are you a part of a block association? Are you
mhm,
in a tenant group? What are you doing civically to help out? Because
mhm,
because if you were helping out, you wouldn't say things like we only see you around election time, because
mhm,
I'm at community board 10 meetings every month, and every month elected officials actually show up and give a report.
mhm. Yeah, I
And
mean,
they prepared to answer questions. So what do you mean
yeah,
I said,
there's a lot of factors.
it's an education,
Yeah,
it's an
yeah.
education disconnect, and until we really find
Mhm,
a stronger way of doing voter education, voter registration, then engagement, then accountability, things are not going to change. One of the things
mhm.
I've been promoting right now is that we need a robust voter education registration campaign and the black community. And the
Okay,
black community.
I hear you.
We have nearly 30 state assembly districts throughout New York State, and if we need to look at who's not registered and begin to go after those people and educate them. And as we're reaching out to
Okay.
them, make them leaders in their community. You don't have to just be me, Dr. Allen. You're a leader because you're leading change on your own block, or you're
Mhm,
trying to save your building. Whether it's Lennox Terrace or a HUD subsidized building or whatever, the fact
Or
that you are
address
at
the
the
issues of
table
a 145 project.
at 145 project, that your
Mhm,
voice is involved and that you're talking with your neighbors and that you're not waiting for
mhm,
somebody else to arrive, some messiah to
mhm.
arrive to save
Right,
you. You are saving yourself. And
right.
because you are meeting, as they say, faith without work is dead. You're coming halfway, and if you show up, you're going to meet other neighbors who are also out here doing the work,
Mhm, mhm.
and
Well, I think
and there's
it's
plenty of work to be shared.
yeah, I think all of these are concepts that absolutely and positively have to be addressed. But a lot of this has to do with leadership, and it has to do with organization.
Yep.
And that's a key thing now. And I mean, one of the things that we're looking at, and I mean, we have to delve into this, but it's like democratic socialism versus the Democratic Party. We understand, and it was made clear to me in one of the interviews that I did with a Democratic Socialist, that was in the person of the candidate Blackburn, that as you stated, it is not a party. Okay, it is a club or an organization, and they are still they're still Democrats, which is why they were able to be in the Democratic primary, as we have a Democratic Socialist mayor, but he's under the Democratic Party. So people are trying to wrap their thoughts around it. And as the political analyst here, I know you do a lot of research and you're out there in these streets, but what would you say to people? Because I'm hearing a lot of the I would say, quote, old school or diehard Democrats speaking about democratic policies, America, what's democratic, and
Yeah.
kind of feeling like, oh, democratic socialism is not that. So would you address those two
Yeah.
things? I would appreciate it
So
greatly.
I think the party locally and statewide and nationally have become lazy. Okay, we talk about things that we did 40 and 50 years ago, and we're not educating and engaging and holding people accountable. We're not just like the George Floyd movement and the civil rights era, we were bringing people to the table, we were sharing information with people, we're empowering people. We're not really kind of doing that. We have a great structure in the Democratic Party that elects people to county committee, at least two to four people for every couple of blocks. And I think that if we really kind of empower those people or identify those folks who can play those roles, I think the party would be a lot stronger and people would see the difference. With the DSA has a lot of social media stuff, and often you really only see them around election time. I never see them in community meetings at all.
Okay.
I've never been invited to a meeting where we can share ideas. If you care
Mhm.
about me as a black man and black people, then how come you never invite me to anything? As a Democrat district leader, I'm always inviting folks to everything. If you was to go to my social media page, I'm constantly posting stuff for folks can come to. We have a community board meeting. Show up. So to me, it's great DSA, some of the ideas they're working on, but if they truly care about black people, and I'm talking about a black agenda,
Okay.
I'm talking about a black agenda. If they care about us, there's ways to help organize us where we can be strong as a collective community. Show up when we need you to show up, not just election time, but show up when we got to work with some issue. When the 145 project, where were they? Where was DSA when we're talking about 145? Where was DSA when we were talking about Lennox Terrace development project? Where were they when they were talking about the rezoning of 125th Street? Where were they when we're looking at the plummeting of what's happening in our public schools here in Harlem and other communities? I'm saying if you care about a people,
Hmm.
then show up and participate. And then guess what? I might vote for you myself
Okay. I
because
hear
now I,
you.
I see you as my partner. I don't
Right.
see you as someone coming in who just moved here two
Hmm.
years ago, and all of a sudden you're going to tell me that you're smarter than me, and you've been here 2 years and you got a job somewhere, and that you're defending people. And I said, hold on, wait a minute. I've been raising money for public defenders
Mhm.
for a long time. I don't
Mhm.
recall you going to Albany with me to raise any dollars.
Right.
And I'm not
Yeah.
speaking, and I'm not specifically talking about Conrad. I think he's a nice young man, but
Right.
my concern is that I don't see enough community education mobilization by them. And guess what? I don't see enough of it by us.
Yeah. Yeah. We
We have a
we're
party, so
we're in a quandary.
we have an opportunity to make our party a stronger vehicle. If the state party right now does very little to help district leaders do their job. You hear me?
Okay.
I have yet to see in the last 5 years or more where the state party say, "Hey, we're going to have a state convention or state conference, and we're going to show you how to be an effective district leader. We're going to show you how to properly run a Democratic club." I don't see where the resources are available to make us an effective group so we can have a true impact on our community and making sure that we're then electing the voices that reflect our values and our concerns. And I really believe if the party begin to really get into education, engagement, accountability, we're going to have a strong party in New York State. And I think that's what the socialists are saying. The social DSA have figured out that haven't been doing our job.
Mhm.
And what they're doing is they're going right through those little weaknesses and those holes that we got, and they're taking advantage of it. I can't blame them for that.
Mhm.
I can't blame them for if they come up with and they craft a message similar to Project 25, where they get people to focus on very specific issues and they turn out the vote on those issues. That to me is genius. You know,
Yeah. There's a lot.
oh, it's a
Thank
lot
you.
of genius in it. What they do is a lot of
Yeah.
I can't criticize them for their incredible canvassing operation, how they knock on doors 5 times. I
Mhm.
would just like to see them knock on doors when there's no election.
Right.
We need an organized community. And if you care about us, we need you to continue to help us organize ourselves. And
Mhm.
guess what? You might help us yet to strengthen. You might help us to redirect the Democratic Party. If
I
you're saying
think,
that you're a part of our party, we need you to help us make the party better.
right. I think that
We really
there,
need that.
I
We need
think
it.
there, in my opinion, and just canvassing a lot of things and talking with a lot of people, and I appreciate you coming on because I know that you're in the trenches, you're in these streets, you're around all the time. You know, I also am formerly was on Community Board 10, so I understand what you're talking about.
Yep.
But one of the things there appears to be a divide um, for between the Democratic Socialists and the Democrats, the real Democrats, and America, and all of these things. And then there's also a lot of, I guess, what you could
Well,
say.
let's talk about the divide though.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk
First
about.
of all, like I said, our meetings,
Mhm,
Democratic clubs, are open to anybody to attend.
mhm,
I have never been invited to a DSA
mhm.
meeting as a district leader. Invite me to come speak.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
care about my party, then come work with me.
Okay. I think we have to, I think that you're right in that aspect, but I would say that as a media person, I have not in person, but I have virtually been to a Democratic Socialist meeting. And I wasn't personally invited, but I'm scanning all kinds of, media, social media every day. And I saw that there was a meeting. This is like prior to Mayor Mondani being elected. And I was like, okay, let me go to this meeting because I want to see what these people are talking about. And also, I had like some kind of pie in the sky vision that Mayor Mondani was going to be there, and I had been trying to get to him to get an interview. So I was at the meeting, not in person because I couldn't make it in time, but I was virtual. And if you were virtual, you could comment and you couldn't communicate. So I took it upon myself because I was like, okay, what is this about? But some of the controversy with the Democratic Socialists and the Democrats is very deep, particularly for a Black Mecca community like Harlem. And some of that is, you raised it, that, some of the people who are part of the party are young people who have just come here. They may not necessarily be people of color, and they're coming thinking that they know what the people in this community need, and they're going to lead them. This is a traditional thing that happens. It happened during the uh, Black Power movement. It's a traditional kind of thing. I also have been reading, and I'll have you comment, some articles, where there was some conversation that the Democratic Socialists is really, mostly white wealthy males who are kind of directing what's going to happen. So this is some of, the divide and some of what we're talking about. But one of the concerns is that we need to stay focused on what are the real issues, and also the fact, because this is the word in the street, people in Harlem are feeling like they're being passed over. They're feeling like they're being passed over by the mayor, Mayor Mondani, the Democratic Socialists, that Harlem is kind of like a bastard child whose father, doesn't acknowledge them. So this is some of the feeling of the people. And then that, you know, generates into disillusion, and that generates into people thinking they can't do anything and not doing anything. So how do we address these issues? What are your thoughts in terms
We
of
got to call it for
what's
what it
going on?
is. Like I said earlier, you know, if you care about black people, you show me a black agenda, and you show me that you're organizing us, not waiting for to elect or unelect one of us, because they don't seem like they only run people in black neighborhoods, largely in brown. You know, I don't see them running folks in white districts. I see them happening basically in districts of color, and because they know that we're vulnerable. And my whole thing is, if you care about us, we need more than this election stuff. We really need to become an organized community if we're going to improve America for us. In this 250th anniversary, we recognize that we're not as organized as we once was as a community, and we do need help. We do need to have the ability to educate our neighbors, to engage them, and to hold each other accountable. And we realize if those three things happen, we really believe that we'll have a better city and a better country. And DSA can play a huge role if that's their interest. And the
Mhm.
Democratic Party, they need to shake their butts up too. They got to do better.
Right. Yeah,
I'm
because
a district
yeah.
leader for 26 years,
Mm.
and I've never been to a single conference or convention that would give me skills as a district leader to be an effective district leader and run a Democratic club never. And so
Okay.
we got to change how we do business if we want to continue to motivate people. I would like to, and I said to some other district leaders, I said, you know what?
Yeah.
I said, I'm pulling back my club together. I said, I want to be able to now recognize county committee people that showed that they had increase in voter registration. I want to be able to reward county committee leaders who had a high, who've increased their voter turnout in their district. You know, I want to be able to give movie tickets out, dinner tickets, whatever, to certificates. I want to celebrate the prime voters in my community and say, listen, you are the stewards of democracy in this community, and I see you and I thank you. I want to make participating, as they say, sexy. I want folks to be embarrassed when they're not participating.
Mhm.
You know, because too many people pride themselves on not participating, as though it's a badge of honor. I want to change that paradigm
Yeah.
where
So we
people,
we we have a lot of, thank
yeah,
you so much. I'm Terry Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and we're having an extremely robust conversation with one of our Harlem district leaders, Dr. William Allen. And we're just talking about DSA versus the Democratic Party, and what happened in the primary, and why it happened. And obviously one of our main concerns is the Harlem community and
Yeah.
us getting our balance, getting our just desserts. I think we're making an appeal right here on air in Harlem Network News that we need to work collaboratively. If these people have come in and won in the DSA, then they're going to need to be accountable to our community, understand our community, and work with the leaders in our community. I think that, that is a very real factor. Would you comment on what happened right here? We know we had our congressional incumbent in the person of Congressman Adriano Espinal, who was upset by the winning. And when I say upset, the election was upset by the winning of candidate Daria Lisa Chevalier. That almost was a shocker to everybody because, in some respects, he was part of the old guard. Though a lot of people had a lot of things like feeling like, okay, well, what is he doing for Central Harlem? But they were feeling like, we know him, we can work with him. But this is what occurred. That was a huge upset. I know there were upsets in District 7. We had Brand in Brooklyn, Brad Landers coming through. What are your thoughts on on this election that was
Yeah.
like a huge
So
wake up
yeah.
call?
Let's compare uh two of the three congressional victories for DSA. The Brad Landers victory and
Mm,
Lisa's victory, Chevalier in the 13th. Because it's not like the defeat of the Brooklyn Borough president. That's a kind of a different, and I want to talk about that separately.
mm.
But
Okay,
Brad
thank you.
Lander, I've known Brad Lander a long time,
Hmm.
and I've seen Brad Lander do work.
You said
You
what?
I've seen Brad Lander do work and to be accessible. He was an
Okay,
incredible member of the city council. He
okay.
was an extraordinary citywide elected official. I've seen him in
Hmm.
Harlem many, 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 many times, right? Um, and it's not to take any away from Dan Goldman, but to me, Brad is a community organizer,
Okay.
and to me has helped to really organize our party, and I can count Brad as a friend. Um, I've come to recently learn about Dan Goldman. I had a chance to meet with him a few months ago through a fellow district leader, and
Hmm.
got to talk to him, and I shared my views with him at that time, you know, and I indicated to him it looked like you're going to have a tough race based on who your population is and the fact that people are now looking for more from the party, and if you have not addressed these things already, you're going to have some trouble. And then when it comes
Hmm.
to Adriana Espriat in the 13th, now he's my fraternity brother, and personally, I can count him as a friend. I like him a lot personally, but there's
Okay.
some things that he didn't do, and I spoke to him about that constantly years ago. Charlie Rangel used to bring all the elected public and Democratic Party officials together at least 6 times a year,
Okay.
if not more.
Hmm.
And he resourced us.
Hmm.
And his staff was
When you say
constantly
resourced,
like in
share that.
campaigns, and he would fund our operation on election day. He would just make sure there was resources that we had to get our jobs done.
Okay.
He had Bill Lynch working closely with us and his firm to
All
make
right.
sure that we had help, to get out our vote, get out our message. Charlie Rangel, was able to get black and brown and anybody else in this district. We all came together as a political family. Since Charlie Rangel left, Adriano, who is like I say, is a friend of mine, is a frat brother, hasn't really done that. And I, for the first time in 10 years, this recent election is when I finally saw that there was an outreach by his campaign to bring us all together. And I was like, wow, what took you so long?
Hey.
And I think had he started bring us all together way before this 10th year, he would have been reelected.
Mm.
He would have been reelected because he's in Washington. He got information that most of us don't have, and
Right. And
he
he's
would.
on committees and so on and so
Yeah, we
forth.
needed someone with
That,
seniority,
yes,
and so
yes,
now
yes.
it's not about him losing; it's about us losing because this is where that's a failure of leadership in terms of community organizing on his part, and hopefully he'll become honest about that. I never saw how there's been such a great divide created since he was elected to separate blacks and Latinos.
Right.
I never saw that before.
Yeah, I think
And I
yeah.
was and that made me very, very disappointed. And I saw some of the stuff that came out in this current campaign against Doralisa, saying that she was Haitian. That turned me off. I'm
Well, I
sorry.
mean, the thing is,
I thought that was despicable. And even
yeah,
though
it's
I don't think she's young, I don't think she was prepared for this job, but I think that kind of venom that came out, it's like, wow, this
well,
is
we know
horrible.
we live in the world of social media now, and people are coming, throwing mud every which way they can. And, that becomes an intrinsic situation. And one of the things that we have to look at is the way the district is cut up, because initially when Congressman Rangel, was the congressperson, it wasn't cut up like that. So we know that the district is the Black Central Harlem. We know that the district is East Harlem. We know that it's Upper Washington Heights, heavily Dominican, East Harlem, more Puerto Rican. We got part of the Bronx. The district is cut up. And because it's cut up like that, the needs of some of the people are different. Also, because of what we're dealing with, if you really don't speak Spanish fluently, it's hard to deal with the district because it's cut up so. But what I would also say, when we start talking about people throwing mud and saying she's Haitian, well, if she was, you know what I'm saying? Because we're looking at an island, which is half of the island's Haiti, half of the island is Dominican
Yeah,
Republic.
Hispanoia.
Yes, so I'm sure that probably everybody that's on that island is kind of mixed up and all together. I mean, I did also hear, and I don't think I'm misquoting, Dara Lisa saying that she was black. So
Yeah, I heard her say that on New York One.
we know that this is a racist country. So race and what party you are, or colorism or your hair, we know in America that has been used to, create a divide. So I would just roll
Well,
over that.
when she went on air and acknowledged her African ancestry, that was a winning formula for many folks in Harlem,
Hmm.
and among Black people, because we're very sensitive when people don't acknowledge their African history. And
Absolutely.
I can't recall a time that the congressman ever said that. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, it was
um,
powerful. She is a young woman.
and he,
She's educated, and
yeah, and
she obviously understands
I think if he
from
had
whence
acknowledged
she
his
came.
own, if he had acknowledged his own, I
Mhm.
think that would have done him really. It would have helped him a lot better. It
Right.
really
But I
would. It
think,
would have really would have, and it would have it separated as opposed to, because some people saw him as a nationalist, where it seemed like his only focus was on the Dominican Republic, and not on the entire congressional district. And in spite of the fact that the district now has a huge number of Latino residents in that district, when Black folks were elected in office, we did not exclude anybody. In fact, if you look at the history of Black elected officials in this country, we were about democracy. And while we were fighting for our issues, what we fought for helped a whole lot of folks, including people of Latino descent and white people too, poor white people.
of
You
course,
know,
okay, we all have
Dis-
Social Security
Charlie
because of
Rangel's
Adam Clayton
Charlie
Powell
Rangel's
Jr.
district was not just Harlem.
Hmm.
It was East Harlem. It was a large portion of the Upper West Side. It
Hmm.
was Washington Heights. Charlie had a diversified district too. I
Hmm.
remember it, and I remember who came to those meetings. And in
Hmm.
those meetings that he called of all the elected officials in his district, it was blacks, whites, and folks who identify themselves as Latino. We were all in the room together,
Okay,
and we
well,
shared, and let me finish,
okay,
and
thank
we broke bread, and I got to learn and know a lot of people because Charlie Rangel created that kind of situation. Now I'll give you an example, because I've been around a long time, and I've been in spaces that many people have not been in, right? And I've been
you.
fortunate thanks to Charlie Rangel. The Congress, Adrian Esposito threw a breakfast in support of Kamala Harris one Saturday morning in the district, and it was held up in Washington Heights. Every elected official in the 13th congressional district attended.
Mm-hmm.
I personally made phone calls myself to make sure that we showed up. I called
Okay.
Keith Wright. I called
I
Robert
got you.
Jackson. I
I
called
got
everybody. I said, listen, I said, we got to all come together.
you. Mm-hmm.
Even we have some distances on some other issues, we got to be in this room. I said, we
Mm-hmm.
really do. Let's see if this could be some kind of change, right? And we all showed up. It was
Okay.
beautiful.
All right. I
That
love it.
was the Congressman Waterloo moment to continue to bring all the community together. You hear me? And then 2 weeks later, there was another event that was organized, and it excluded all the black elected officials. And I called him. I said, dude, what are you doing? I said, there's not one single black elected official that's been invited. And he said, oh, that was such and such who did that. I said, no, but your name is as big as day on the flyer. You got to do
Mm.
something about that. I said, I've worked
Yeah.
very hard to bring this all together. And now in
Mm-hmm.
one swoop, you done killed me in terms
Mm-hmm.
of doing that.
Right.
I said, I'm telling you, if we don't come together soon, we're all going to be doomed. We really are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the problem over those 10 years of folks not understanding about coalition building, right? And why people of color have to find a way, whether you speak Spanish or French in the district, we got to find ways of meeting our commonalities and working together. Whether your family's from Senegal or Mali or from the Dominican Republic, we're one family. And the leadership have to show how we continue to bring all the groups together. And when folks are not in the room, we got to say, how come you were not in the room? Just like I said to you earlier, when the man said, well, I don't see you politicians only on election time. I said, well, how come you're not in the room when the room is public? You
Right.
need
I
to be in
hear
the
you.
room.
I hear
Your
you.
voice needs to be heard. Your ideas need to be heard. You're needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's democracy. That's participation. It's not about going ahead and elect somebody and let them do all the work. We all got to be responsible. We all got to be able to speak truth to power, as I've done with the Congress. Say, listen, we got to do better than this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
We
think
got to
we
do
have
better than
to.
this.
I think you're very correct, and I appreciate your candor because we cannot afford any longer to kind of gloss over things and not say anything, not do anything, keep the protocol, because we don't want to step on anybody's toes because, that'll get us all killed. So
Yeah.
I want to just say, because this is a big conversation, we are definitely going to continue this conversation. But what are your thoughts? I'm just going to, go laser on our central or Harlem situation. What are your thoughts and what are the expectations and what are some of the things that we should be pushing that for the candidate Daralisa Chevalier? What do we need to do? And this whole
I
this
think that these
whole this whole pot
I
of
think
the
that
Democratic Socialists.
Lisa needs to immediately call a meeting
Mhm.
with elected officials, party public and Democratic Party leaders in her district together to talk about what's next and to
Okay.
share her story with us as a community and be able to begin to start a new chapter. I think if she does that, it won't be a DSA thing. It'll be about a community thing. So therefore, we can truly have an agenda that also reflect the struggle of Black people in New York City and particularly in Harlem when we see gentrification happening. So we can all be on the same page. Now
Mhm.
that she has the nomination and she's going to win the general election, we need to say, okay, you got our nomination. We got to support you. So now how do we work together? How do we work together now? You're in office. You're a young person. We got to work with you. I don't care if you're from Florida or wherever you're from, all that kind of stuff. Now you're in the seat. And you got in the seat because the team that you had did the work to get you elected.
Was a
That's
machine.
your your team did the work to get you elected. In spite of all the attacks on you, You got elected. So now you got to show leadership by calling us all together and coming up and say, you know what? We got to work together. Let's discuss what that looks like. Let's
Okay.
discuss what that looks like.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know,
So we're gonna well, I'm gonna put one period on this. And I just want you to share your thoughts on where Mayor Mondani sits on this and his relationship to Harlem.
was that a
Okay.
question?
Yes.
Oh, what was the question again?
Okay. Obviously, Mayor Mondani backed three candidates or more, and the candidates won in the DSA. So the question is, in terms of impact on Harlem, Mayor Mondani, what our needs are, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Mandami is now in office. We've been talking about the 145 project. What is he doing to help that project? You know, I speak to my friends that my fellow friends and members of the Defense Harlem. I said, okay, now we got a mayor that's about affordability. So let me see an example of that in Harlem. You know, bring the necessary question subsidies that we need to create the 144 project, making sure that future development in Harlem truly is affordable. So therefore, we're not displaced. Let me hear that program because so far I haven't heard that yet.
Okay, so how do we, in your opinion, as a district leader,
I
as
think
somebody who's been out there,
holding people accountable. If they're promoting affordability, whether it's DSA or Democratic Party, our values should not change. We still should have the same demands. And the demand is, okay, you got the power now. What are you going to do? And I just don't want to hear about a free bus. I don't want to hear about you freezing rent for only a few people. I want to truly talk about how do we create an affordable New York City for working and for all people, and how do we lift folks out of poverty? Where's workforce development? Where's training programs? You know, I want to let's have a real discussion about the economic health of the New York family, of New York people, so our children can see a clear pathway into the middle class and to employment and to access to training education. These are the kind of things I think if he begins to really seriously address, it will make a huge difference for all of us. And guess what? I'll be the first one to say, you know what? He should be reelected. You know,
okay, I hear
I
you.
don't care what his style. If he keeps saying Democrat Socialist, I know he's still a Democrat. And I would say, you know what? He's now focusing on the agenda that I care deeply about. You know, right now, blacks in Harlem, we're down to what, under 50% of the population. And East Harlem, Puerto Ricans only make up 18% of the population in East Harlem. I mean, we're
Wow.
really, so the numbers speaks volumes in terms of how the city and the state have treated us, but largely how we allow folks to treat us, how we've allowed folks to fail us because we have was no longer putting ourselves in the room to make sure that our agenda isn't an agenda or our items is on the agenda. We got to make sure that we stay present. Just like if DSA is doing canvassing and knocking on doors, we got to make sure that we're doing the same thing. You know, when Miss Shoemaker at Martin Luther King Towers, we got to say to her, what do you need to engage your residents? She's talking about retiring this year as the
Okay,
president. What does that
okay,
mean? Um, the president over at Lincoln Houses, what kind of support you need to get your tenants more engaged? How do we make sure that we can excite people to see that they already got the power if they educate, engage, and hold themselves. We got the power. We just got to get the participation.
okay,
And that can be a huge, and just imagine if we increase our participation, how much stronger in Albany would a Cordell Clear be? How much stronger in Albany a Jordan Wright would be? And Al Taylor would be, you know? Um, Jolisa down going to Washington. Imagine if our community was thoroughly enlightened and coming out in much larger numbers, how much power we have. Look at the race in the seventh congressional district. It's like the seventh, Upper West Side, Upper East Side. Look
I
at the
think it's a
number of
10, the Upper East
look at
Side.
the number of people that came out to vote.
Mhm.
Look, I mean, I've gone to Community Board 7 meetings over there, community board meetings. It's packed.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
packed. It's a different level of folks on that board. I said to my colleagues on Community Board 10 over the last couple of years, I said to some of them, who are you?
Hmm.
The only time I see you is in a community board meeting first Wednesday in the month. But where are you in the community helping to organize the community? I see you coming here helping to make decisions, but I don't see how you're connecting back to the community to say, you know what, I met with 111th Street Block Association. I met with the PTA at Public School 123. I met with a series of ministers, and based on my meeting with them and the information shared with me,
Yes.
I offer the following vote.
Hmm.
I see people just voting on their own head. It's not good, you
Right.
know. And so one of the things I've said at Board 10, and I've been saying it a lot lately, and I said this to the councilman, and I said this to some other board members. I said, you know, next year, you know, after this current administration leaves, I said I want to get back to what I originally proposed back in 2024. That Community Board 10 needs to be divided into 10 outreach zones,
Okay.
right? There's 50 board members, 10 zones, and then you divide board members into those zones, and their responsibility is to get to know those folks in that zone. Who's the PTA officers? Who's the block association leaders? Who's the pastor? Who's the local business? Imagine if we all got assigned a zone and we had the responsibility of being like a liaison to those
Mhm.
areas to bring information back and forth. People need to see how their government is working for them. And that
Mhm.
means guess
I
what?
think what you're
We
speaking
would we
about.
would we would transform Harlem overnight just by how we're organized. How we
Yeah,
all
it has to be
we
with a
got to
plan.
use the tools. We got to use the tools that we get. And if we use the tools that we get, we can become very, very successful of creating a model that can be used in all the other 27 assembly districts throughout where there's a black elected official or where there's a black majority black voting population. We can change how democracy looks for us and how our participation looks.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I do have one comment from one of our uh, audience members. We have a team that kind of funnels in things even when we're not live. And one of the questions is, quote, campaign financing. And what about outside influences uh, like the PACs, like the APAC and so on and so forth, that are controlling Congress and local government, and almost, we're almost responsible for like Jamal Bowman getting out. What about that?
Well,
Because we've
first
been
of all,
talking about initiatives and this,
yeah,
that, and the other,
yeah,
but there's a
let me
big
let's stick to the question. Stick to the question.
okay.
So, I'm old enough to remember what Tip O'Neill said. Tip O'Neill said, "All politics is local." So, yes, in our Constitution, it says freedom of association. People can form all the packs they want. You can't stop that. The
Mhm,
issue is why don't we form our packs? How about that? You know,
mhm,
you're not going to be able to stop people to their choices in terms of how they see their government. The issue is why are you not organized?
mhm,
Why is there not a block association on your block?
mhm,
Why is there not a tenant association in your building? You got needs. Heat's not working right. Elevator's dirty. Why you organize? My mother always say, stop talking about other folks and start working on yourself. Do
mhm.
your work. And so my point is these large PACs, super PACs, they exist when the American people and communities choose not to organize themselves.
Mhm.
Because
I just don't
if you're organized yourself, there's going to be very few people that can be able to penetrate your community.
okay. Well, at this point, and this caller, this listener is really concerned about big money that has been coming into people's campaign. whether it's APAC or whoever it is, these big monies coming in and feeling like the public officials are being influenced by this money.
Of
Could you
course they are.
comment?
Of course they are. But the question is, where's the little money coming? Why? If we had community, like I said, community board having zones. If our community was better organized, you would you would need very little money to elect people that serve our interests.
Mhm.
Most of the electors have to spend a lot of time raising money, especially in our community, because our community have not gotten into the habit of funding their own elected officials. I'm mailing,
See, I
I'm
guess
mailing
we
for.
have to,
Let me tell the
go ahead.
story.
Go
The
ahead.
mailing for an assembly race to send out to Democratic voters can come with upwards to $10,000 for one mailing.
Mhm.
Where's that going to come from?
Right.
So when people say, "Oh, this is," I said, "Hold it. Did you give $1 to the campaign? Did you
It's
come
it's
in? Did you come and volunteer? Say, I'll run you. I'll come spend an hour to do the phone bank." Until we step up with our own time and our own money, we're not going to impact big money on a campaign.
okay.
Stop
Well,
talking
on that,
about somebody else and start talking about what you can do different. Because you're talking about changing the behavior of somebody else, but you're not talking about changing your own behavior. That's my concern. Change your behavior and your participation, and that will make the difference.
okay, I hear you. Well, on that note, we will say that we know in our congressional district, a whole bunch of money was spent. Congressman Adriano Espaillat, much money. Daria Lisa didn't have the same money, but there was an
But
organizational machine.
that's my point. She
There
had
was a machine. There was a
she
machine.
had organization. She had people committed on the ground to a goal. I got in my mailbox. I was telling somebody I had 17 pieces of mailing just for Jordan Wright alone.
Yeah, I
But
think
yet
you know.
those 17
Yeah.
pieces of mailing did not reflect in the number of votes he got. So I'm saying to myself, just imagine instead of putting all that mailing together,
Mhm.
you put together a robust campaign on the ground where you're knocking on some doors. Save
Mhm.
that mailing and go out and meet people.
Okay.
Not
So
for some
on,
doors, find out who's influencing the development and do that. Put that money back on the ground and back in and so DSA understands a ground campaign is how they win.
right. And
Because
also
I saw the
all
campaign.
eyes on that national tech campaign
Yeah.
where DSA is organizing, you know, the other
DSA
side of a
organizes locally.
2025.
They focus
So we
on
got to look at
DSA
that.
focus on like maybe 3 bullet points. They go after that, but what they're good at, they have a good solid ground campaign and follow-up campaign. So they go on the ground, they're knocking on doors, they're collecting data, they do follow-up. So they don't hit your door 3 times and they don't call you 20 times.
Okay.
They give you
So,
all the attention in the world. And I'm saying that they that's the model. We got to do the same thing. And so you can raise $5-10 million, but if you're not spending it, if you're only spending your $5-10 million on white media people, right, and
that's
not spending
true.
it back on
Not black media,
they're
as
not spending on black media.
Harlem Network
They're
News
not spending
and
on black
Roland
media. They're
Martin
not spending
says,
on black media.
no,
They're not. They're
not at
not. They're
all.
not. They're not. They're
We
not giving
get
up
the
a
crumbs
dime.
after
They
all the big money
they're
is
not
spent.
giving a dime, and
Mhm.
and a lot of those consultants they make their money off these mailing companies, right? It's not coming back to us. It's not.
Mhm. Okay.
It's not. So my point is, we got to look at how we're organized as a community to impact uh, and implement our agenda and the change that we need. We got to do things. We just cannot be coming to people like a hat in hand thing. We got to really organize ourselves in such a way that people will be afraid not to come to us and do business with us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're formidable.
We're
So
fun.
William Allen, on this 250th anniversary of
And I was
the
there in the
country,
beginning.
the country that we built, that we built. We fought in the revolution, we fought in the Civil War, and we're still here and we're still fighting. So, on that note, I thank you for having this discussion. A lot of food for thought. It's not the last discussion.
Can I say this
So,
also about the
yes,
2050? Let me
yes.
that Revolutionary War was incredible. It spoke to some high ideals about what America should be. Unfortunately, it did not live up to those ideals. Even after the British lost the election, they did something very different than the Americans. The blacks that fought in that war on the British side was given their freedom, and the blacks that was fought in the war on the American side was put mostly back into slavery.
Okay.
That's the
Wait,
paradox. Let's be
tell it,
honest.
tell
You
it,
want to
tell it.
celebrate our history? Also thank the British for what they did for black people. When they say, you know what, you fought with us, we're going to give you your freedom. What happened on the American side, we had slavery, we had Jim Crow, we were lynched, we were burnt. It was horrible. It was people hanging from trees, strange fruit. It was horrible. So America owes black people. I was watching The View the other day, and one white
Reparations,
she
reparations,
said, if
reparations.
all people that owe reparations in this country is black people, and until America recognize what they owe us, we will still be in this situation. So you can keep playing around with us all you want, but you are also affecting your own growth and future, because by you not taking care of the people that you have greatly harmed, you will continue to harm yourself and the promise what America can become.
Okay, well, thank you. And on that note, I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. I'm here with our district leader, Dr. William Allen, and more to come. We have a lot of work to do,
A lot
but
of work to do.
knowledge is power, and our
And they,
media
Terry, and
is
tell them to
about
get in
bringing
touch.
it.
If they can get in touch with me, get in touch with you. Tell
Yes.
them, Terry, please tell them I'll talk to anybody
Okay.
that want to be educated, engaged, and be accountable. You know, anybody that wants to do something to make a difference, I'm here for them. I'm your doctor to improve
Okay.
your civic engagement, because at the end of the day, change will happen because you as an individual have chosen to make a difference.
Okay. And how can folks get in touch with you,
They can just
Dr.
call
William?
me. They can have my number,
Okay.
nine one
Okay.
seven 612 2871. 917 612 2871. It's better to text me first and give me a chance to call you back. But if you can't text, you're welcome to call me. But I need you and you need me. And if we can find ways of working together, we can make Harlem the best, the shining community example for all of Harlems throughout the world.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And this is Terri Wisdom, Harlem Network News. Reach out to us. You can reach us directly if you have a story or you need information, you need support. Please spread the word. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. We are at 646-261-5397, Harlem Network News at gmail.com. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media. And we are revamping our website, so you'll be able to get on there and go to harlemnetworknews.org. Stand firm, stand firm. For whatever, backward never, in the words of Marcus Messiah Garvey, up you mighty race. Thank you. Have a great day. Power.